Sarah Boone, a name forever etched in the annals of true crime. Her story, a chilling tale of a deadly game gone wrong. Jorge Torres Jr., Boone's boyfriend, was found dead inside a suitcase. Boone's explanation? A tragic accident, she claimed. Torres had willingly climbed into the suitcase, she insisted, and she had zipped him up as part of their game. But as the details of the case unraveled, a sinister narrative began to emerge. The truth, it seemed, was far more disturbing than anyone could have imagined. The air hung heavy with the stench of fear and desperation. Inside the suitcase, darkness pressed in from all sides. Jorge Torres Jr., trapped alone and gasping for breath, pounded on the unyielding walls of his prison. His cries for help, muffled by the thick material, grew increasingly frantic. Boone's story, a chilling counterpoint to Torres's desperate struggle. She described hearing his muffled pleas, his frantic banging, yet she didn't open the suitcase. Instead, she filmed him. Minutes stretched into an eternity as Torres's pleas grew weaker, his movements slowing. The prosecution argued that Boone's inaction was a deliberate act of cruelty, a chilling display of her callous disregard for human life. The courtroom buzzed with anticipation. The evidence, laid bare for all to see, painted a damning picture. At the center of it all, the videos. Videos that Boone herself had recorded. In the flickering light of the courtroom projector, the images flickered to life. Torres, trapped inside the suitcase, his face contorted in fear, his voice a desperate rasp, begging for release. Boone's explanation for recording the videos sent chills down the spines of those present. She claimed she wanted to show the videos to Torres later as proof of his behavior. The prosecution scoffed at her explanation. They argued that the videos were not evidence of abuse but rather a chilling record of Boone's cruelty. The videos, once intended to serve Boone's narrative, had backfired spectacularly. They had become the most damning piece of evidence against her, a chilling testament to her guilt. The courtroom, usually a place of somber pronouncements and hushed whispers, was now a stage for a macabre play. The evidence presented, a grotesque tapestry woven with threads of love, violence, and ultimately, death. Witnesses took the stand, their testimonies painting a picture of a tumultuous relationship. There were accounts of Boone and Torres's passionate love, their shared dreams and their laughter, but these joyous memories were overshadowed by darker recollections. Tales of explosive arguments, accusations flung like weapons, and the chilling thud of flesh against flesh. One witness, a neighbor, described hearing chilling sounds coming from Boone and Torres's apartment on the night of Torres's death, laughter followed by shouting, then silence. The prosecution argued that the laughter was evidence of Boone's callous disregard for Torres's suffering. Section 5, A History of Violence. The defense, in a desperate bid to explain the unexplainable, delved into the troubled past of Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres Jr. Their relationship, they argued, was a pressure cooker of emotions, fueled by mutual jealousy and simmering resentment. Witnesses were called to testify about Torres's alleged abusive behavior. Stories of his controlling nature, his quick temper, and his propensity for violence emerged, casting a dark shadow over his memory. The defense argued that these past incidents were crucial to understanding the events that led to Torres's death. They painted a picture of a woman living in fear, constantly walking on eggshells, terrified of triggering her boyfriend's rage. Boone's actions on that fateful night, they argued, were not those of a cold-blooded killer, but rather a desperate woman pushed to the brink. The prosecution, however, remained unconvinced. Section 6, Shifting Blame. The courtroom became a battleground of narratives. The prosecution, armed with forensic evidence and chilling video footage, presented a case of calculated cruelty. They meticulously dismantled Boone's defense, highlighting inconsistencies in her story and pointing to her callous demeanor in the videos. They argued that her claims of fear were a desperate attempt to evade responsibility for her actions. The defense, on the other hand, fought to paint a picture of a woman trapped in a cycle of abuse. They argued that Boone, consumed by fear and panic, had made a series of terrible decisions, culminating in the tragic death of Jorge Torres Jr. The jury, tasked with unraveling the tangled threads of truth and deception, faced an unenviable task. Section 7. The weight of evidence. The evidence was overwhelming. Like a dam bursting, it flooded the courtroom, washing away any doubt that lingered in the minds of the jury. The videos, those chilling recordings of Torres's final moments, played a crucial role. The jury watched, their faces etched with a mixture of horror and disbelief, as Torres's muffled pleas for help echoed through the courtroom. The prosecution, their voices laced with controlled anger, pointed to Boone's demeanor in the videos. Her lack of urgency, her dismissive words, and the chilling absence of panic in her voice all pointed to a single, inescapable conclusion. Sarah Boone knew exactly what she was doing. The forensic evidence further cemented Boone's guilt. Torres had died from asphyxiation, his body found contorted inside the suitcase, a testament to his desperate struggle for survival. The tension in the courtroom was palpable. After weeks of testimony, of evidence presented and dissected, the fate of Sarah Boone rested in the hands of the jury. The weight of their decision, the knowledge that their verdict would forever alter the course of Boone's life, hung heavy in the air. Days turned into nights as the jury deliberated, weighing the evidence, debating the merits of the arguments presented by both the prosecution and the defense. The world outside the courtroom watched and waited, their collective breath held hostage by the anticipation. And then, the moment of truth arrived. The jury, their faces etched with the gravity of their decision, filed back into the courtroom. The verdict, delivered with a solemnity that sent shivers down the spines of those present, reverberated through the room. Guilty. Sarah Boone, her face a mask of disbelief and dawning horror, had been found guilty of second-degree murder. The courtroom, erupting in a cacophony of gasps and murmurs, bore witness to the fall of a woman who had once seemed so ordinary, so unremarkable. The courtroom, once abuzz with the drama of the trial, now stood silent, the air thick with anticipation. Sarah Boone, her face pale and drawn, stood before the judge, awaiting her fate. The verdict, guilty of second-degree murder, hung in the air like a shroud. The prosecution, their case meticulously built on a foundation of evidence and witness testimony, argued for a harsh sentence. They painted a picture of a callous and calculating woman, her actions driven by a chilling lack of remorse. The defense, their client's fate hanging in the balance, pleaded for leniency. They spoke of Boone's remorse, her deep regret for the events that had transpired. The judge, his face impassive, listened intently to both sides, and then, with a gravity that silenced the courtroom, he handed down his sentence: 25 years. The case of Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres Jr. sent shockwaves across the nation. News outlets, hungry for a story that would captivate their audiences, devoured every detail. Social media platforms became breeding grounds for speculation and outrage. Armchair detectives, armed with snippets of information and fueled by righteous indignation, dissected every aspect of the case. The case ignited fierce debates about domestic violence, accountability, and the role of technology in our lives. Some argued that Boone was a victim herself, driven to desperate measures by an abusive partner. Others saw her as a cold-blooded killer, her actions inexcusable regardless of the circumstances. Years have passed since the guilty verdict echoed through the courtroom, but the case of Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres Jr. continues to haunt the collective consciousness of the nation. The questions linger, their answers elusive, lost in the labyrinth of time and speculation. What truly transpired on that fateful night? What drove Sarah Boone to make those choices, to film her boyfriend's dying breaths rather than come to his aid? The answers, like whispers in the wind, remain elusive. The story of Sarah Boone and Jorge Torres Jr. lives on, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are not the ones we imagine lurking in the shadows, but the ones who walk among us. their true nature hidden behind a veneer of normalcy.